So picture this. Last Sunday, my afternoon schedule is cleared. My phone is off. I have my brand new shiny microphone set up on my desk. My notes are ready. And the plan was to record the very first episode of this podcast. Well, at least that was the plan. The reality, 3 hours later, I've decluttered all my desk drawers. I've replied to emails from 2 months ago. I suddenly decided that it was absolutely time critical that I fertilize all of my houseplants. You get the drill. And my podcast, of course, still nowhere near recorded. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, I was suffering from a serious case of procrastination. So I thought, what better way to kick off my podcast than by talking about the very thing that has prevented me from actually launching my podcast and, to be honest, a lot of other things over the years. So today we're going to dig into what procrastination is really about. And spoiler alert, it's not about laziness. We'll also unpack the emotional roots of procrastination, especially fear, and how it shows up oftentimes when we're trying to do something that really matters to us, but maybe something that scares us. So hopefully by the end of this, you'll understand a bit better what's actually going on in your brain when you procrastinate and walk away with a few simple science-backed strategies to help you get out of your own way, get out of your own head, and finally start the thing that you may have been putting off. Sounds good? Awesome. Let's dive in. Hey, I'm Noemi, former queen of bad habits and corporate go-getter turned well-being coach and personal growth junkie. And in a world full of overwhelming wellness advice, we're here to cut through the noise. This is your space to master healthy habits, transform your mindset, own your well-being, and design a life you love on your terms. We're ditching the highlight reels and embracing the whole messy, imperfect journey towards becoming our absolute best selves. You're the author of your own story. So are you ready to write the next chapter? Let's go, and welcome to Unwritten Potential. First, let's unpack what's really going on in the brain when we procrastinate. I promise it's not going to be a science lesson, but I think it's really useful to understand what's actually happening behind the scenes, especially because people often associate procrastination with laziness or poor time management or poor discipline. But psychologists have found that procrastination isn't a time management problem. It's often an emotional management problem. When you procrastinate, you're not avoiding effort. You're avoiding the uncomfortable emotions that come with whatever task you're trying to do. And that can be things like fear, self-doubt, overwhelm. But it's not a character flaw. It's biology at work. When we face something our brain perceives as difficult, boring, emotional, risky, our internal alarm system starts to kick in, right? That's your amygdala. You may have heard of this. The part of your brain responsible for detecting threats or danger and, screaming, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. And it sends out an emotional warning that triggers a stress response. That's what we call fight or flight or freeze. You're not in real danger, but your brain still reacts as if you are. So we instinctively move away from discomforts and towards something that feels nicer, that feels better, that feels safer. Meanwhile, the part of our brain that helps us plan and make thoughtful decisions, that's our prefrontal cortex, that gets overridden. So that's why even when you know something is important, you know you have to absolutely do something, you still end up doing anything but whatever you're supposed to do. For me, that's often scrolling Instagram instead of doing the thing. And here's where it gets even trickier. Your inner critic joins the party. I call her my inner bitch. What's wrong with me? Why can't I just get this done? And that adds shame and pressure, which only makes it even harder to begin. But here's the thing. That reaction, it's a totally normal threat response. Our nervous system is wired to keep us safe, and anything that feels risky, like being judged, getting it wrong, or doing something new, that can set it off. So, why am I sharing this with you? This is the takeaway. You're not procrastinating because you're disorganized or bad at managing time. You may be procrastinating because you're trying to regulate an uncomfortable emotion by avoiding the task altogether. And yes, that avoidance feels good in the short term. It gives you relief, but it creates more stress and guilt and stuckness in the long term. Now that we understand what's going on in our brains when we procrastinate, let's talk about what we can actually do about it. We want to take action. All right. So now that we understand why we procrastinate, let's move into the good stuff, the strategies. I've prepared 5 tools you can use to shift out of procrastination and into action. And the first is name it to tame it. So let's start with something simple but super, super powerful. And this is straight from neuroscience. When you put a label on what you're feeling, it literally activates the thinking part of your brain while calming down the emotional part of the brain. It's like flipping a switch. So when you catch yourself saying something vague like, I just can't seem to start this project, start my new diet, start my fitness program, whatever you might be trying to achieve or complete, try digging a little deeper. What's really going on there? So for me, it's often, I'm worried it's not going to be good. Other times it's, I'm afraid of what people will think if I put this out there. Or even, as it's happening right now, who am I anyway to even talk about this on a podcast? But remember, you don't need to solve the fear right away. Just the act of naming it helps you process what's happening. So you become the observer of your fear rather than being consumed by it. Okay, my second strategy is rewriting your personal narrative, which I am all about. And this one is powerful because the labels we carry about ourselves can quietly shape our behavior. And we all carry labels about ourselves. So for me, it's, I'm not a maths person. I have a bad memory. But here's the trap. Your brain loves being right. It will push you to behave in ways that prove these stories to be true. And obviously that creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. So start noticing which identity labels you're carrying around. Then ask yourself, is this story actually helping me? Or even better, is this story even true? Well, for me in the maths, it's absolutely true. But, I'm 42 years old. I've just given up. The good news, you're allowed to update your narrative anytime. Your identity isn't fixed. It's a choice. So what are some old stories that might be fueling your procrastination? Can you poke at them and question whether these stories are even true? Is this helping me? Is this serving me? And then a really powerful question might be, what new stories would serve you better? My third strategy, build confidence through action, not perfection. Confidence isn't a prerequisite, it's a byproduct. Confidence doesn't magically appear before you start. It grows as you do the thing. But that's really hard because it feels uncomfortable to be a beginner. It feels vulnerable, especially if you're used to being good at certain things. You've experienced success in maybe your personal life, family life, professional life. So this one is a big one for me as I transition into a coaching career and launching my business, because coming from a fairly successful corporate career so far, I'm not used to being a complete beginner, not professionally anyway. So we have high standards, but we don't have a lot of skills yet. And that gap can feel really paralyzing. But you don't need to be good to start. But you definitely need to start to get good, which, hey, is what I'm doing right now. So lower the bar, take the first tiny step, It's all about progress over perfection and consistency and messy action, right? So break things up into smaller chunks of work. Give yourself permission to be a beginner. Strategy number 4, the spotlight effect is lying to you. Spoiler alert, people aren't thinking about you as much as you think. Like, seriously, no one cares that much. People are way too busy worrying about their own stuff. We all bring main character energy to our own stories, right? And constantly concerned with how we're performing and how we're being perceived and if we're being judged. And when that fear creeps in about what others will think, remember that most people are way too preoccupied with their own insecurities to spend much headspace, mental energy on yours. They're wondering if their hair looks weird on that picture or if their work presentation to their boss was too long. When I shared my very first article on Substack, I was absolutely terrified of criticism, like major imposter syndrome. But I realized something first, no one read it. I think 5 people, and all of these are friends. But I also realized something really powerful. I cannot control what others think, but I can definitely decide how I show up, whether those thoughts derail me from what matters. Their reactions belong to them, and my work and how I show up to the world, that belongs to me. And I would really invite you to bring that same energy. No one cares. Just go for it. So take a second to think about it. What would you create if you stopped letting the fear of judgment hold you back? What would become possible? And our last, but certainly not least, strategy number 5, fake it till you make it. Well, kind of. This one is about embodying the version of you you're becoming or you want to become. You don't need to wait until you feel like the confident, consistent version of you to start acting like her or him. In fact, that's the trap. Our brains don't rewire through thinking, they rewire through doing. So the more you show up as if you're that version of you, the one who finishes the things, shows up consistently, speaks up, takes action, whatever it is for you, the more natural those behaviors will become. It's not about faking it in a cringy, pretend I'm someone I'm not kind of way. It's about asking, what would the version of me I'm becoming do here? And then doing that, even if you don't feel ready. That's how you close the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Not with positive thinking, but with consistent action. Confidence grows from doing. So don't wait for the feeling because it's not coming. Start acting like her or him now, and your brain will eventually catch up. If you want to go deeper with these strategies, I've created a free journaling guide to help you move from stuck to started. It's called Journaling for Procrastination, and it is filled with powerful prompts you can use to coach yourself through resistance and take that first step. It is free, and the link is in the show notes, or you can visit the podcast website, unwrittenpotential.com/1. Okay, so if you are still with me, yay, let's quickly recap the biggest takeaways before we wrap up. Procrastination isn't a time management issue. It's an emotional response to fear. Number 2, your brain is trying to protect you. That's not a weakness, it's just the way we're wired. 3, you can rewire it step by step by naming the fear, rewriting your personal narrative and the stories you're telling yourself, build confidence through small action, remembering that people are not actually watching you that closely, and start acting like the version of you you're becoming. If you're still here, thank you. I am seriously grateful you listened all the way to the end. I hope this episode gave you something useful or validating, or maybe both. Feedback is always a gift, so feel free to message me at noemi@unwritten.coach. That's Noemie @unwritten.coach. My email address is also in the show notes. And yeah, tell me what landed, what didn't, or what you'd love me to talk about next. I'm here for it all. And Okay, now I'm cringing a little, but I'm going to say it. If you like this episode, it would mean the world if you would follow the show or share it with someone who might need it. I would absolutely love that. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. And until next time, bye.